Hello, in this video I'm going to explain how to prepare an image for printing using Photoshop Elements. This is my starting image here, but of course you can use any image you like for this. And what we're going to do is enhance the tones a little, we'll boost the colours, and then we'll resize the image for a specific print size and apply sharpening for that print size before finally taking it into the print dialog for printing. So let's get cracking. Now, I'm going to begin here by enhancing the tones a little. My image here is a little bit flat and it's lacking contrast. So what we want to do when we're printing is make use of the entire tonal range from black to white. So we can use a levels adjustment to do this. I'm in the Photoshop Elements expert mode, so you need to click on expert at the top here, and then we can click on the layers panel down here at the bottom to open up our layers panel. Now I'm going to click the create adjustment layer icon here, which is the circular icon at the top of the panel here, and we'll go for a levels adjustment layer. Now this will pop up in its own little box here, and what I'm going to do is drag the black and white points inward slightly, and this will increase contrast. Now if I hold Alt as I drag, we'll see our view changes here, and as I drag you can see areas start to appear in black, and as I drag further you can see more and more areas appear, and if I release, what you'll see is a very dark image. Now all of those areas in black are areas that are going to be clipped to pure black, so those black parts are going to be completely lacking in detail. If I hold Alt and drag again, you can see those black areas change as I drag. So I'm going to bring the blacks to a point just before those areas start to occur, so around about there. So we can allow a few little blacks into the details there, but we don't want to push too far, otherwise we'll get very dark shadows that will be completely lacking in detail. So I'm going to drag to about there, I think, and then we'll do the same with the whites. So I can hold Alt and drag the whites inwards, and you can see the further I drag, the more areas get clipped to pure white. So of course we don't want any clipping in the highlights, so I'm going to drag the whites to a point just before those areas appear, so around about there. And then we can use this midpoint slider here to adjust the overall brightness of my image. So I'm going to bring it to around about there, I think. And if I toggle that layer off and on, you can see we've got richer tones now. So this is going to give us a better print. Now I'd also like to boost the colors. So I'll click the create adjustment layer icon again, and this time let's go for hue saturation. Now we can use the saturation slider here to boost the overall saturation of the colors. So I'm going to bring the saturation to around about +10 just to boost the overall colors. Now I'd also like to make those bluebells more intense. So what I can do now is go to the channel drop down here where it says master, and I can target the blues. Now if I drag the saturation upwards again, you can see we're able to intensify the blues, and of course if I push too far then things start to go wrong, but if I bring it to around about there, you can see we get really nice punchy blues. And again, if I toggle that adjustment layer off and on, you can see the difference that makes. So now that we've got nice punchy tones and colours, let's start to think about sharpening and resizing our image for printing. So first of all, I'm going to make a new layer here, but I'm going to make a merged layer from all of my existing layers. I can do that using a keyboard shortcut, which is Command or Control. That's Command on a Mac, Control on a PC. If we hold that plus Shift, Alt and E, we'll make a merged copy of all of our layers below. So you can see now we've got a layer at the top of our layer stack, and we can use this layer for sharpening in a second. But first of all, let's resize our image because we want the sharpening to be the last stage in our workflow here. So to resize my image, I'm going to use the crop tool. So I'll grab that from the toolbar over here, and notice we get the tool options appear at the bottom of the screen here. And we've got a drop down here. We can use this to choose from some typical print sizes. So you can see we've got like a 16:9, a 5:7, an 8:10. So we could use one of those if we like, or we could set a width and height manually in these boxes here. Now, before we do that, let's have a quick look over this side of the settings here. We've got the resolution here, and we want to set this to pixels per inch. And we also want to set it to 300 pixels per inch, which is sort of a standard resolution for printing. Now, if you were preparing an image for viewing on screen, you'd want to set the resolution to 72 pixels per inch. But with a print, we can go to 300 pixels per inch because prints need to be a bit more detailed. So now let's set the width and height down here. Now let's say, for example, I want to print to an A4 printer. So I can set the size down here to an A4 print size, so which is width of 29.7 centimeters and a height of 21 centimeters. So that gives me an A4 print size. Now, as I drag a crop box, let's just zoom out a little, with Command or Control and 0 brings my image full screen, and then I can drag a crop box over my image like this, and I can tweak the position. I can use the arrow keys if I like, just to make sure my subject here is nice and central, and then I can click the tick to apply. So now I've resized my image to an A4 print size at a resolution of 300 pixels per inch. So that's the two key things to remember about resizing an image for print or for on-screen viewing. We set the width and the height down here, and then we can choose the resolution over here. Now we're ready to sharpen our image, and we can do this using the unsharp mask command. So let's bring our image full screen. In fact, what we could do actually is double click the zoom tool here, and that will bring our image to 100% view. So now we're viewing the actual pixels. Then let's go to Enhance, and we'll go to Unsharp Mask. This will bring up the Unsharp Mask dialog, which is a great tool for sharpening an image for print. You can see if I click and drag over the little preview here, then we see our image move around. But we also see a before and after. If I click and hold, then that's the before. If I release, that's the after of the settings that we apply down here. So the amount slider here controls the overall sharpening strength, and the radius slider here controls the size of the edges. So a high radius means you can see that the contrast change that occurs with sharpening is pushed further away from edges in the image. So we want to keep this fairly low, I think somewhere around about 1.7, 1.8. And we'll bring the amount up a little bit higher, because with prints in particular, you can push the sharpening a little bit further than you would with on-screen images. So you can bring it to around about there, I think. This is all just about judging it by eye. There's no one magic setting here for sharpening. Now the threshold here controls the fine detail. If we set a higher threshold, you can see the details don't really get sharpened at all, because now we're restricting the sharpening effect to the thicker edges in the image. So we want to bring that down quite low. If we set it to maybe 1 or 2, and this is quite useful if you have a noisy image, because you can set the threshold to exclude the sharpening from the noise while still targeting those details, and I'm happy with that. So my amount here is around about 150, 155, radius 1.7, threshold 1. I'll hit OK to apply. And if I toggle that layer off and on, you can see we get a nice subtle sharpening effect. In fact, if I zoom in a little closer, just for the purposes of the video, I'll toggle it off and on again, and those details have crisped up nicely. Now finally, we're ready to print our image, so we can do this using the File Print option here. So let's go to this, and there are a few options here in the print settings that we want to make sure are right. We can select the print size here, and we can just use the actual size option here, which brings our image to fit the page, because notice we've got the select paper size set to A4, which is the size that we prepared our image for printing. Now there are a couple of options worth exploring down here. In more options here, we can go to color management, and we can set this to the Photoshop Elements Manager's color here, and then we can choose a printer profile. And you can see I've got several different printer profiles here. These are all downloaded from the Epson site because they refer to a specific printer and a specific type of paper. So if you want to get really into your printing, it's worth downloading the right paper profile for your printer and paper. So for example, for my Epson 1400 here, I've got the premium glossy photo paper option set there, and that will just ensure that the image is tailored for that specific printer and paper. And then of course we can just hit print to print our image. So there we have it. That's how to prepare an image for printing using Photoshop Elements.